Avowed might just be better than Skyrim, and at this point in time, I think I might actually be more excited for an Avowed 2 than I am for an Elder Scrolls 6. Welcome to Bite Size Bunny, my name's Tony, and today we're going to be talking about Avowed. Avowed is the latest first-person fantasy RPG from Obsidian set in the Pillars of Eternity universe. Was I familiar with this universe before playing this game? Absolutely not, but did it take away from the adventure at all for me? Not even a little. I actually think this works perfectly as a stepping stone for the Pillars of Eternity universe, and that it does a really good job at introducing you to this world that's full of interesting settings, creatures, and a wide range of characters. To give a brief synopsis of the story here without going into any kinds of spoilers, in this game you play as your created character who is referred to as Envoy, and you are sent on the dangerous task by the Empire to uncover what is causing this mysterious plague that is wiping out life all across the Living Lands. During your adventure, you realize the Empire low-key sucks, and you learn the various ways they are negatively impacting the people of these lands that are just trying to live their lives free of the Empire's control, while also getting to explore a plethora of mysteries that pop up throughout the game's story. The story in Avowed is surprisingly way more engaging than I was anticipating it to be. I personally haven't played a whole lot of Obsidian's other titles before, but I consistently hear about how good their writing is, and in Avowed, the story is absolutely one of the highlights here. The narrative managed to get its hooks into me really early on, and I was constantly dying to know what was going to happen next. You also get a cast of companions that will accompany you on your journey across the Living Lands, and they really do make for some pleasant company. Well, at least most of them. There is one character that is introduced to your party later on that I personally found to be really grating to deal with. The other three companions, on the other hand, are pretty solid though. While I do wish these characters were a bit more interesting, the voice actors do an excellent job at elevating the material and really making you want to connect with them. While I never really felt a strong emotional connection with these characters the way I did with games like Mass Effect or Cyberpunk, I do think there is a solid enough foundation here that it makes me excited to see what the writers do with these characters in a potential sequel, and how they kind of elevate these characters from being characters I just like to characters that I love. The antagonist is super dope. Anytime they were on screen, I loved the dialogue I had with them and that back and forth I had developed throughout my playthrough. I was consistently looking forward to my next encounter with them to just see how things were going to play out next. The one aspect of the story I found to be really disappointing was its ending. While I really enjoyed the final mission and think it does a really good job at building up the stakes and the tension, the last few minutes really dropped the ball. The final cutscene is just extremely underwhelming. It's not offensively bad, and it doesn't ruin anything that came before it leading up to that ending, but it is so painfully generic that it had me sitting there thinking, really? That's what we're settling for? Which is super disappointing considering everything else was well done. As far as the combat goes, it was way more fun than I was expecting it to be. Usually in these kinds of games, I am all about the sword combat. I love getting up close and personal with the enemy and engaging in that close quarters combat, and you know, that is really fun and solid here too. But the build I found myself running for most of the game, which is so out of my wheelhouse, was actually more magic focused. Typically, I'm not the biggest fan of magic combat in video games. Personally, I feel like it never feels as good or as cool as you'd hope it would. I think the only game that has managed to make me enjoy the magic combat and feel fully immersed in it is Hogwarts Legacy. So I can't even begin to express how caught off guard I was when I used the wand and spells for the first time in Avowed and loved the way it felt. It quite literally feels like a first-person Hogwarts Legacy, and it's awesome. I was obsessed with pouring all of my upgrade points into the various spells I could cast while also increasing the strength of my wand. There were even points where it felt like I was shredding through enemies, and it was so satisfying. I also put most of my attribute points into intellect and resolve, so whenever I wasn't dropping flaming meteors on my enemies, I was trying to talk my way out of various combat scenarios, and doing that was equally as much fun, if I'm being honest. And let me tell you, talking your way out of some of those combat scenarios definitely comes in handy at times, because oh boy, are there some difficulty spikes in this game that feel out of nowhere and kind of absurd. On the plus side, you can adjust your difficulty at any point, so if you're ever getting frustrated and just want to progress forward, you can knock down the difficulty a few notches. But it is something that is absolutely worth noting here. Hopefully they can resolve that issue, or in the next installment they can make some changes to make it feel more balanced. From a presentation standpoint, I love the look and feel of this world. It being so colorful and vibrant really helps it stand out from other fantasy RPGs. There's some really fantastic locations that I was excited to explore the moment I stepped foot in them, them. While I do love the visual design aspect of the presentation in this game, I do wish the music packed more of a punch though. There were a few instances where the score would really come through and make some of those moments so much better, but at the same time, I unfortunately think the music for the most part takes a back seat to a lot of the adventure. And I'm only pointing that out because I feel like it has so much potential, and I really hope they let the composer go all out with it next time if they do happen to get a sequel. Overall, Avowed really impressed me. I'm excited to see where this universe is going to go next, and I would love if they got a sequel to this title. If you're a fan of games like Skyrim, I highly recommend checking this one out. I think it's as good, if not better. Personally, I like the world they created here a bit more, and I'm really wanting more of it. Avowed is a great RPG, and I'm fully expecting it to make its way into my top 10 list at the end of the year. I'm going to be giving Avowed an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. Like, subscribe, and all that YouTube stuff. And what's your favorite fantasy RPG? I'd love to know.